5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to HyzerCast Disc Golf Podcast Episode 7. I'm Dave here with Joanna and Lou as always, and welcome to this episode. We're talking about discs. What else? It's a disc golf podcast. We gotta talk about discs. We're gonna talk about flight numbers, plastic, different stabilities, durabilities, things like that. So we're gonna get right into it. Disc golf plastic. Disc golf
Plastics.
Obviously, lots of different molds have different plastics. Different companies all have different plastics. Some of them are very similar plastics. Different plastics have different stabilities for discs, and they also have different durabilities. But it's not a perfect, linear thing for how stable something makes it versus how durable is it. So, for example, in the DX plastic, very not durable. I don't know what the opposite of durable is.
It's not forgiving plastic.
Right.
It gets
beats
beaten up,
in real
chunked
quick.
up. The flight characteristics are constantly changing on the disc.
But as opposed to something like champion plastic, it's not very stable.
Sure.
Yeah. I want to just jump in, and I know we talked about discs a little bit in a past episode, and something that Lou said has really stuck with me. And when we were talking, I think about beginners and disc speed and plastic and, but in the lens of a beginner, to don't use a disc that is changing on you while your technique is changing. I really thought about that for a long time after you said that, and kind of looked at my bag and thought, okay, like what in here? I don't throw any baseline plastic, but that's such an interesting idea. When someone is learning how to play, is their arm changing or is their disc changing, or is it a combo of both? And how can you properly learn, form and things as the plastic, even in certain weather, plastic is different and it will fly different between the winter and the summer. So at that point, just, I guess, thank you for that, because it really got my brain going for a while. I'm really thinking about, why do we give beginners necessarily baseline plastic? Sure, maybe give them for their first round, and once they're into it,
We sell the game on
but
cheap. We sell the game that, it's so inexpensive. This disc, look, it's only $8, but you get what you pay for too.
Yeah.
So it's funny, we sell everybody that disc golf is so super cheap, and then what do? We have 300 discs in boxes we haven't seen in the last decade.
All $25 a piece.
Right,
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
But no, plastic, going back to our actual topic today, it's like, it is very important when it comes to your game and discovering what discs you need or don't need.
Sure. I think some plastic types are good for different applications. Some people might find their stabilities or different stabilities in the same mold. I think giving somebody the less durable plastic as a beginner, I think it's like there's less attachment to them. We know they're not like the greatest disc we ever had. Maybe we came across one. Maybe someone didn't ever want it back. You found it on a course and you call the guy, hey, I have your DX Leopard. The guy might hang up on you. Like, I don't even want that thing back.
So, threw it in the lake. How did you get that?
Sure. Oh, my favorite has got to be, hey, I found your disc on the course. I've never played there in my life. That's a good one. So yeah, we give away the cheaper plastic to beginners, and I think it's good because the cheaper plastics, let's just say, are the plastics that are made for the beginner, maybe. Could be partially because that plastic has an easier flight to some of the molds, and also I think they have great grip and texture to the plastic runs. So giving somebody a nice hard candy plastic disc, it might be too stable for them, and they might not connect with the grip. It might feel slick to them. So I think the cheaper plastic has its role in terms of helping out a beginner. They ultimately will, if they fall in love with the sport. The advice stays the same. Find something that has good durability so you can take the variable of a changing disc out of the equation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when finding discs you love, once you find that, I don't know, like the rim that feels the best in your hand, playing with the plastic in that is so important. I think, did you mention a Leopard 3? Maybe you did. I think the ding 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 went off because I love my Leopard 3, and I love it in all plastics, and they do different things. And I think that's really interesting to play with, because for me, that feels really nice to my fingers, as well as the Sidewinder. Those are my two off the tee discs. Or, I mean, there are others in there too, of course, based on the whole.
The shape of the mold is
yes,
perfect
it feels very comfortable in my hand. And I think as quickly as you can find that is number one, because you want something that always feels comfortable in your hand, and then from there you can get creative.
Yep.
And never have to go above, let's say, a 7 or a 9 speed.
Yeah.
Not everybody needs to throw 10, 11, 12, 13 speed discs, and you can have just as much distance with something that feels like home in your hand than trying to work something higher speed into your game.
Yeah. And to the point we talked about on the last episode, kind of our preferences.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask you guys just real quick, what is kind of your game plan in terms of in a long term of a certain mold that you find? Do you find a high durability plastic in the mold that you like, or do you go a little bit lower durability and have maybe a really beat in one, halfway beat in, brand new, and use that mold like you were saying that feels good to get the different stabilities? Or do you find a high durability plastic in 3 different molds that have 3 different stabilities? What do you guys kind of work into your bags that way?
A couple thoughts come to mind really
ready?
quickly.
Are you ready?
Yeah,
Okay.
Are you ready?
There's a lot going on.
I know, I have so
I'm
many
ready.
things.
This is a
I
loaded
gotta-
question. We don't have enough time for this. Go ahead.
A couple things. I think it's interesting when people potentially use discs and they're beat in so well for too long that if you lose it, you lose a whole slot in your bag. I am thinking about, I know for me right now, I throw the Origin, and I've had it since I started, and I throw it a lot, and it's getting flippy, and I think, you know what? Is it time to take this out and replace it with a new one so that it doesn't keep changing? Or if I lose this disc, I don't have a proper replacement because one is not getting used or beat in enough. Do you think people should keep kind of fresher plastic in their bags? So let's say, unfortunately, we've seen instances of people stealing bags, like from pros. Unfortunately, that has happened. And what do you
Right.
do when your discs that you've, gotten to a place that you know so well, but
Or you
that's
just
not
throw
the way
it
they
in
come
the
out of
lake,
the
you lose
factory.
it.
But like something like that, what do you do?
Just your good backup system.
Yeah.
Do you work other discs in your practice to be ready to
Be put into your bag, or do you keep like fresh discs? And I know that's not exactly what you asked, but that made me think of that with
It's
the same
close.
with the same mold, different plastics, but
Yeah.
how fresh is that?
No,
I think
that's a
it
great
adds
point.
to the complexity of how you work and build your bag. Oh, it's a simple question, but it's much more than that, is what you're saying.
And also, runs of discs are different.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Same plastic, different stabilities.
Well, not the same
Correct.
plastic. The number.
Well,
the,
right.
talking-
Same name. Different
Or
runs.
like different
my,
years, yeah.
I had a very interesting journey. I had a very mixed bag for a very long time. Friends know now that I've predominantly been just throwing a certain line of plastic for a while, and I find it very, very predictable. Where I have several discs in my bag that are the original discs I bought 6 years ago, and they have the same stability. Yeah, they've hit trees and stuff like that, but their mold holds so true and so well that if I lost the disc, I know that I just lost something on a sentimental value. But in terms of flight, I trust the company for me to just go pick one off the shelf and it to be what it says it is, which is comforting. So I would really focus on the brands that you use and just stay up to date with what they're coming out with. I, every once in a while, just throw some of the molds in newer runs to see if, hey, is this driver staying consistent with the one that's in my bag right now? Yes. Cool. I'll throw it for a little bit, and then I'm just reassured. I don't need to worry about having to find the perfect backup because the companies are doing better at replicating the flights on these runs, we'll call it, because the molds don't change necessarily. They'll tell you if the molds change. The plastic constantly changes. The raw material. Talking to manufacturers, that's what it's going to come down to.
Quality control.
And we have control over what we do, and not we, I don't make any discs, but
Get Lou's custom discs in the link below. No, I'm just
listen, we're not coming out with that just yet. But the people who are injecting their molds, the companies that are injecting their molds, when they have these raw materials, they're at the mercy of who is providing them with the raw materials. They have to use their trade secrets, add their fillers to even get weights right sometimes.
Yeah.
That's all gonna basically come down to how these discs dry, their curing time, the pigments, the time of year. Are you climate control company, or are you just, you got the windows open to your shop pumping out plastic? And Yeah, earlier today, those drivers were flippy, and in the afternoon, those drivers are way overstable. Yes. So, there's a lot that goes into making something consistent. The plastic is the catalyst to it all.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing with the plastic that I find is I don't have the fastest arm speed. So honestly, the more beaten a disc gets, the farther it goes for me.
Yeah.
Because a lot of discs that I throw out of the, off the rack are too stable, so I got to force it over. But as they get beat in, they get flippy, obviously, on their own. I think that might be a thing with newer players. Because I know, especially just talking about plastics in general, when I first started, one of the most overwhelming things was like, all right, you got to find the mold. You got to find the speed of the disc and all these different things. But the plastics was so confusing. It's like, all right, these flight numbers mean something. But not really, because it's different times of the year, different runs, different plastics. It was really confusing for me, and I kind of understand it now, but it's definitely something that new players
going to struggle with for a little while,
right.
for sure.
Especially
Absolutely.
looking at different manufacturers and knowing which ones are similar to different manufacturers. Like, it's hard because it's not like, okay, everybody uses the same naming system. Of course they don't, because
Well,
they're different companies.
Discraft
But
for a long time, they used to just have the arrow and like the 1-number decimal system, and just based off of the mold, it's saying it was a distance drive or a mid-range. It was 1 arrow, 1 number to tell you kind of the flight characteristic. That wasn't as in depth as the 4-number system with speed, glide, turn, and fade. So, but yeah, having that across the board helps. It's, I think, something that helps a player understand in the beginning stages. But then, like we're talking, all that could just be chucked out the window if we're talking plastic types.
Right.
Your Leopard in a Star plastic versus a DX Leopard are going to fly
so
dramatically different.
Right.
So it's
Different.
interesting.
Yeah, and that brings us right into our next topic, is we're going to talk about flight numbers. So I think the overwhelming kind of thought that comes out of this conversation is that are flight numbers really even that accurate? Especially when it comes to the turn and the fade of discs. There seem to be inconsistent between molds, especially between different disc manufacturers, because there is no standardized flight number rating system.
Right.
So should the PDGA be, making this, all the same, or
I got this
what?
one, folks. I got
Okay.
this one. This isn't gonna be
Blue
long.
knows the answer.
let's go.
I'm gonna put it like this. Dave, what size shoe do you wear?
Oh, God.
A 10.
A 10. You ever find yourself buying a 10.5 sometimes based off of different company making a different type of shoe?
Yes,
Do
absolutely.
you think the International Shoe Company should just kind of reel this all in together for us?
I think
Got him.
there's a little bit of a difference between the size shoe you wear and the flight numbers that affect a tool you use in a competition.
Touche.
Because you could find a shoe that fits whatever the number says,
You can find a disc that fits.
but you're basing it off of...
Well, listen, I think if a manufacturer has discs, I think in their lineup, their numbers should make sense. Absolutely. And I think we can't really sit here and say manufacturers aren't doing that. I believe they're doing that to the best of their ability. I don't know. I would love to see what goes into the determination versus the
testing.
specs
Me too.
of the discs themselves. But I would love to see what goes into that. What is it like, what was that show, Top Gear, where they had the Stig who would just like drive all the cars?
Oh,
Dude, is there like just
control
like
group.
the one control player who goes out, like he just shows up in a tuxedo and like just throws distance,
Yeah.
like writes down the flight numbers and gets back into his limo and drives away? That would be so cool to be,
That would be cool.
the guy to put the numbers
or
together.
a robot. Just a consistent robot. Just throws the same speed, same whatever exactly every time. Whatever the disc does, that determines the flight. I think that's... And we're joking, but
Yeah.
something
Something
like
under
that.
control.
That would
Something
be
that any
interesting.
manufacturer can send away or go somewhere and test the disc, just so it's consistent.
Yeah.
So, and it's all consistent to what degree anyway, because we all do different things. Let's just, for example, I might throw harder than you, but when you break
Might.
down our throws, you might be producing more rotation on the disc than me. So the disc for you
sure.
is what it's going to be for you. The disc for me is going to be what it's going to be. And does it even, once I'm putting this disc in my hand, based off of the flight numbers. Does it feel right? When I go to throw it, based off of its flight numbers, is it anything close? And is it something that I can see myself wanting to reproduce in terms of a shot over and over again? I need this in my bag. I wouldn't get so hung up on the discrepancy of how much they match up. I like certain brands, and I think that their numbers are pretty close to spot on. I never felt like, man, that's so off. Maybe one time, but, you know.
Yeah, but I think when you're buying discs, you need to be honest with yourself and don't say, okay, yeah, I have a 13-speed arm. If you really don't, like, and there's no harm in knowing.
I got a 100-speed disc.
Yeah, arm
we're
here.
Still prototyping the 100-speed disc, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's important to know because you don't want to, end up getting something that has no use to you, and it really is all trial and error.
Sure.
At the end of the day, but be honest. I don't know. Start flippy. Get more stable.
Yeah.
Have a wide range, and then you'll kind of know. And you're like, oh, what do I buy?
Yeah. Well, that was what I was going to bring up. Is if nothing else, because you made a good point that the disc does what it does once it's in your hand. But I think the flight numbers, especially the turn and the fade, make more of a difference when you're buying a disc and trying to figure out what disc to buy.
Mm-hmm.
If a disc has a higher or low number than another disc, it should be more or less stable. I think that's, you talked about to what degree of consistency. I think it has to be at least that. If you buy something with a -4, it has to be less stable than a -3.
I understand what you're saying.
Because then if you buy it and it's different than whatever you already have, then you're going to be disappointed. The company has the motivation to make it at least that accurate, so they're not disappointed with a disc that they buy from your company.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think the feedback would be good. In the developing process, hopefully they just don't get so ambitious about setting out, we need this disc. We see our chart, we have this speed, this stability, and this is the blank spot, guys. We need to create this disc. Maybe they fail and they just throw the flight numbers on there anyway, say, job well done, guys. And then we go out there and it's like, this is not what
even
they
close.
said. I will tell you, I purchased a disc one time off the premise that this disc does exactly what you want it to. And I have that disc in my bag still, and it still does exactly what I want it to. It's an original release compass, and the flight hasn't changed. It's a point-and-click type of disc. I use it off the T-pad all the time, and I'm shocked how fast it is. And it was everything that they had sold me on, and that's great. Now, can they do that with every disc, every mold, just be so particular and say this is exactly what it is? Eventually, they're going to try to sell it to the wrong person. Because if I didn't have enough arm speed for the disc, or if I had too much arm speed for that disc, it wasn't going to be what they tried to sell it as. And that probably happens more often than not. It's hard to keep up to that exact promise. Flight numbers, go get the work, put the work in, see if it's for you. I wouldn't be so hard on. I think the thing that would be the toughest thing is to get the other companies to really reflect well. I think they might do a good job with speeds. They don't do a good job reflecting stability-wise from one company to another.
Right.
That's usually the hardest to match up across the board.
But thinking about this from a beginner lens, kind of like what you said, there's so much out there, and there's not really a good resource for people who have a lot of questions. It is, you think, okay, we have a number system, amazing, here we go, I'm going to understand this. And you're right, when it doesn't add up, it can be confusing. And, there are local disc golf shops, and maybe they don't have every manufacturer. Maybe the people in there don't know everything about every disc from every manufacturer. That would be really hard to do.
Right.
I felt really lucky that when I came into this sport, I had extremely knowledgeable friends who saw my game and put different discs in my hand and said, try this, try this, try this. If I didn't have that, I think I would totally be lost.
Struggling.
Because there are so many options. Where do you turn?
Yeah.
What can you trust? I know it's, I just said a couple minutes ago, trial and error, see what fits well in your hand. But they are expensive. How much are you going to try? Can you try other people's discs? Are they comfortable with that? Do you know enough people in the community to try their discs or ask them questions?
Do you feel comfortable enough to do that?
Yeah.
Why should you have to do that?
Right.
Or I get it. What would be a good solution to that? What could be...
Actually, my friend, This is great. He's a software engineer, and he was like, I want to design something for disc golf. And I said, okay, design this. I said, try and get a generator, and it's so hard to do, but that people can filter
I think
in
they sell them at Home Depot.
a disc a generator. But, something that you put in the specs, like the speed, the plastic, let's say, the plastic.
plastic.
But let's say something like, I don't know, a Hades. I want a Hades in a certain plastic, but I want a disc that's similar to this. What do? If people don't know, you put in the specs and it pops it out with also plastic in the stability question. And there's nothing that explains plastic stability. And I think that would be an incredible tool to create, but also incredibly difficult. Because how do you measure that?
Yeah, I don't know where you could start to equate that. I know some companies have taken their runs of plastic and in that mold have changed the flight characteristic numbers, given certain discs less stability or better glide because of, say, more durable, less durable plastic. They actually wrote it out differently.
That's
now, I've heard, I think Dynamic in the past, they had for at least what they do, if you were interested in trying to shop for them,
you could put something in and
put in
see
a
the similar
disc and see in their lineup what is comparable.
Right.
And then on top of it, they crushed it a step further. They would let you buy the disc, and if you didn't like it, you could return it.
But could you imagine if there was a feature that had
pretty
every
good.
major manufacturer on there?
Right. Somebody isn't from like an outside perspective,
Correct.
just encompassing all of it. It's just a company did it to compare molds so
For
they
them.
could purchase from
Internal
their
sales.
internal
Yes.
sales. Right.
Yeah.
So it's as an overall sense, a much bigger picture.
Yeah, when you said what could be done, I don't know. That's the first thing that popped into my mind.
For sure. Well, but
Some
that's
tool.
like,
Somebody
and
builds a
that's-
tool.
Well, exactly, and that goes to like the previous episode where we're talking about it's cool to see people being either passionate or entrepreneurial, driven
within
in
it.
disc golf, and we had Bushnell step in wanting to put their technologies to use in our game. Now people might be interested in creating softwares that can aid in certain things, whether it be disc selection and stuff. So your friend is just one of these people, these little slight pioneers that are going to come up and kind of make the game a better thing for the future. Hopefully it pulls off because
I do too.
it works out for them.
I think what we need to go back to your old house where you built a disc
the
golf
simulator.
and all you need is one of every disc
That's
ever,
Sure.
and you can
Great.
sell tickets to have people come in and try every disc.
I-
And then they can go and buy the actual ones, and you just have the stock. But seriously, I mean, half joking, if you just had a place that had most of the most common molds that you could go try, whether it was outdoor or even just thrown into
That would be
a
cool.
sheet or something,
I would pay to do
to
that.
see how it works, how it flies for you. And then, you pay a fee to do that, but those discs stay there. Maybe they also sell discs there, but then you can go out and buy the disc that you find that works for you.
I think it would be really cool to even, like, for example, like, let's take
Like
the...
a pro shop with a driving
hunt-
range.
Oh, I'm glad you say that. Update.
I'm
Update.
glad you asked.
I am
Bob.
glad. Do you know I had someone reach out
Please
to me
tell.
and tell me, hey, we have a country club for our disc golf club. We're interested if you'd come down and see it.
Is this another road trip?
We're going on the road.
We're going on the road.
We're never going to
So,
be back here.
I'm not gonna
Sorry.
disclose
this
too
is
much
the last episode of HyzerCast.
We made it. We're in the club. But yeah, I'm not going to disclose too much information. But yes, somebody's reached out, and
really
to be
interesting.
continued with the
awesome.
country club. Yeah, so it's cool to see we're poking and prodding some subjects here, and we're getting feedback that's
for sure.
satisfying more than our, curiosity or our own opinions.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
yeah,
There's
That is
people on the other side of these cameras, guys. They're watching us. And they're liking it, right? Like this video.
Like and subscribe.
So, yeah, that's really cool. Anybody helping out to try to grow the sport in some cool way, I think one of the ideas I had in the past was tutorial videos, how to throw backhand, how to throw forehand for beginners or something like that, and a catalog of these videos where people can upload their videos, and then as they start to gain momentum or traction, popularity, someone giving really good advice, and we see tons of people giving great advice out there now.
Yeah.
just kind of compete to the, by reviews and likes and whatever.
It sounds like a whole new disc golf platform.
And like it's almost like right, where you could go and you can say, hey, I'm a new player, is there anybody I could go get some advice from, or is there any videos I could look? Yeah, you could go to this site and there's tons of tutorials for beginners and all the way up to professional players, tips. That would be cool.
That is cool.
Having a forum like that that's welcoming is so important. Like,
absolutely.
For real. I'll never forget the first time I posted in my local courses group. I said, hey, I am new to disc golf. I want to come play tags. I see you have an event. I was greeted by someone who is now, very close to me, a great friend. And he said, I had to see this. I thought you were spam. Like, I didn't think you were real.
Wow.
But to have someone, and then of course I started playing every week and became a regular. But
so you couldn't be spam at that point.
I couldn't be spam, but
Joanna's a robot.
But if only my putting was that consistent. No, but it takes courage to reach out. It takes courage to show up.
Sure.
So to have a place that is already, like, to have that platform to say, I'm new. Don't be scared to be new. Ask your questions without judgment, without fear, can, I think, really change how people, I don't know, navigate
it only
launch
helps them,
into the sport.
Right. It only is going to help them anchor in a little easier versus all these unknowns. And just one topic of plastic blends brings up a slew of, opinions and, questions about the numbers, how do they reflect, but they don't reflect. And say a beginner is like, I've been playing for 3 months and I had this starter set. Well, now I want to upgrade and get new discs, and they get new discs, and it's like, this doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Right.
Well, the reason it brings it up is because the way you find out about discs is through conversation.
Yeah.
With people you know, with people you trust. Online conversations, in-person conversations, on the course.
Here, throw this.
What disc was that?
Yeah.
Oh, tell me about that. How long have you had that? What plastic is that? And then suddenly you learn something new.
Yeah. Well, we know what our next venture is going to be, is inventing this platform where we can go on and talk about and learn about all these different discs, ways to use them in plastics, and
techniques.
Comfortable going there as a new platform. So we're going to do that.
I'm not going to do that.
You'll see it. It's coming soon.
I'm just an ideas guy.
Don't hold your breath.
I'm just an ideas guy.
We're the big thinkers here. We're not the... We don't put
See, all we got to do is think about it, and then someone else is going to be like, hey, listen, you know the thing you were talking about?
Property.
See, that's the beauty of this, though. We can talk and inspire others and
for sure
see what happens.
Absolutely.
This is going good, so... What else do we got? Any more big topics?
No more big topics this time, but we have one every week. Actually, 2 every week. 2 topics at least. Plus, sidebars that we like to get into, fun stories.
Of course.
Story time with Lou sometimes. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't done so, please subscribe down below. We're doing great. We appreciate everybody who's watching and subscribed. Those of you who haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Come on, you're here. Just click it. Right there. Right over there. Right under Lou. Red button. If you couldn't find it, right there. So, again, thank you for watching. If you haven't done so already, check out our HyzerCast Instagram. Joanna runs it. She posts awesome stuff. Funny videos of Lou doing things.
Come on.
HyzerMedia is doing tournament coverage now. We have plenty of tournaments out. Check out that channel, link down below for that.
You guys give away stuff all the time, too.
We also give away monthly things on our Patreon and not Patreon, so go check that out. Patreon link will also be down below if you want to see more bonus content, stuff like that. That was a lot. I think if you're still watching, you're already doing some of these, because I'm just rambling on. And now we're going to end the podcast. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you in the next one.